Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Tuesday Talk with Always United. I'm Liz Anders. I'm the chair of Always United this year, and I'm very happy to have you all here because we are lucky to have a special guest today, Ray Tanner, who is the athletic director. I'm sure you all know that at the University of South Carolina, and he will talk to us a little bit about the various programs and what's going on with that at the university. Before I get started on that, I would like to thank our sponsor, AARP Driver Safety. They've been sponsoring these programs, and we really appreciate that. If any of you are already members of Always United and feel comfortable doing so, we'd like you to let us know that you're here by signing in the chat area or the comment area on your screen. And if you're not already a member, we hope you'll consider joining us. Now, I would like to introduce to you Claudia Brooks, who is the activities chair at Always United, and she will introduce you to our speaker.
Hi, Liz. It's good to be here today, and this is an exciting program. And actually, we have a special Always United member joining me today to moderate our discussion. Paul V. Fant Sr. is a longtime supporter of United Way of the Midlands. He's a past chair of the board, volunteered and led numerous committees, and is a founding member and the first chair of the Always United Steering Committee. Paul and his wife Elvita are frequent participants in United Way and community volunteer activities and are long-term members of United Way's Tocqueville Society. Paul was honored in 2015 as Humanitarian of the Year. This award is given each year to an individual who clearly demonstrates extraordinary leadership in philanthropic and human services. It is the highest single honor of philanthropic achievement in the Midlands. Paul has 40 years of experience in working with communities, industry, and all levels of government. He retired in 2015 from Carolina Gas Transmission, a SCANA subsidiary, and he was president and chief operating officer. Because of their commitment to the community, Paul and our featured speaker today have established a mutual respect. It's my pleasure to have Paul join me to introduce our featured speaker today, Ray Tanner. Hi, Paul.
Hey, good morning. Thank you, Claudia. Good afternoon, really.
Yes.
It's a special opportunity for me to recognize our speaker or our guest for today, Mr. Ray Tanner. Welcome to Tuesday Talks, Ray.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if he can hear me. I guess it works this way. Welcome.
Welcome. I can hear you.
Okay. The University of South Carolina Athletics Director, Ray Tanner, is in his 9th year guiding the Gamecocks athletics programs. After a long and highly successful career as Carolina's baseball coach, Coach Tanner officially began his new duties on August 2nd, 2012. Tanner was named the South Carolina baseball head coach on June 14th, 1996, after 9 successful seasons as head coach at his alma mater, North Carolina State. He will celebrate his 25th year at South Carolina during the 2021-22 academic year. Under Tanner's watch, Gamecock student athletes have achieved tremendous success in intercollegiate athletic competition, in the classroom and in the community. Coach Tanner is instrumental in creating long-lasting university commitments the South Carolina Athletics Department has made to its students and athletes. Coach Tanner is married to the former Karen Donnell. They have 3 wonderful kids, Gracie, Maggie, and 1 son, Luke. And he happened to be blessed to have been born in, this Coach Tanner, in Smithville, big old Smithville, North Carolina. I say that because I'm familiar with all that area. I went to school in that area. It is my pleasure, my distinct pleasure, to present to you the man of the hour, Coach Ray Tanner.
Thank you, Paul. I hope everybody can hear me. It's great to be able to visit with you today. I appreciate the introduction. I think that your resume is much longer than mine, so I think that means that you're older than me, Paul. So that's a good thing today. That's good news for me. But but it is great to be able to visit today. I will share some things with you. It's interesting. You know, they say life is full circle. I'm just finishing my 9th year, as Paul indicated, in the athletic director's role, headed into my 10th. And I coached for 25 years as a head coach at North Carolina State, and then 16 here at the University of South Carolina. When I was an undergrad and then in grad school, I always thought that I would be in athletic administration. I didn't think that I would end up coaching. Although I had coached just a little bit in grad school, I thought it would be the other way around. And sometimes life throws you curveballs, but they're good curveballs. And I had a great career as a coach and always, said I would never be able to get back in administration. But lo and behold, I was able to do that here at the university after my 25th year of coaching, and Dr. Pastides and the Board of Trustees gave me the opportunity to sit in this chair, which I cherish greatly, and I hope there's a number of years to come. But it's been a great spot. Paul mentioned my family. We've been here a total of 25 years now. We still live in the same house we moved into back then. My kids are great. They're more into equestrian than anything else. And the horses are not the cheapest hobby in the world. So if you get a chance to control that hobby, please do that. But, it's great. My wife did graduate from the University of South Carolina. We met in Raleigh at North Carolina State, where Paul was an undergrad. And so he's very familiar with that. And she always told me if we ever get a chance to come to Columbia, that's where we're going to be. Well, lo and behold, that chance came, and we've enjoyed our great time here. I'll share some things with you that is going on in athletics, and hopefully there'll be some time at the end to ask some questions. But I'll start with information that doesn't make the news. I think that it should make the news, and it should be front and center, but it doesn't always happen that way, because good news somehow finds a way to not be reported or is on the back page. But one thing that is impressive here working with 500 plus student athletes is their success in the classroom. It's absolutely astounding. And I share this occasionally with people, and they go, we had no idea that it was so good. And that's certainly the case. I'll give you some data. This past spring, the spring grades, we had a 3.369 GPA. That's from 500 plus athletes, and that's the third highest in the history of the school. So it's impressive. We have 21 sports here. There's 18 teams. You say, well, 21 sports, 18 teams. Well, track and field is literally 5 sports, indoor, outdoors, and cross country. But 16 of the 8 teams had a 3.0. A data point that is absolutely mind-boggling is we have been 29 straight semesters with at least a 3.0 average from our student athletes, 29 semesters. When we think about student athletes, I know that many people respect that they are students first and athletes second, but I don't think they realize the success that we do have from the young men and young women who play sports. Our number one team, if you will, the number one team with GPA was women's soccer that had a 3.81 as a program. But those are statistics that get lost. We had 95 young people that had a perfect 4.0 out of those over 500 student athletes. So we all realize, and people on this call are very much aware, that only maybe a percent and a half get an opportunity to make a living playing the sport that they do, and they end up in the real world, and they're well prepared to go into the real world. And that's something that we take a lot of pride in. As I said, we don't get a lot of news for our academic achievement, but it's certainly there and something that we're extremely extremely proud of. I will share another point about community service. I mean, one thing that is not mandated, but is provided an opportunity. We don't mandate that our student athletes go out into the community and volunteer their time, which they don't have a lot of, but we give them an opportunity and we present that for them. And if they can do it, they do it. We don't force them to do it, but they're great about being in the community. In a normal year, we usually exceed about 4,000 hours of community service. During the pandemic, we weren't able to do it to that level, but we still were able to do around 2,000 hours. And our women's swim and dive team led that with about 700 hours that they were able to get out even during the pandemic. And a lot of it was virtually and certainly distant, but we were still able to perform that. Men's track and field usually does a really good job when they do about 1,500 during a normal year. But that typically leads the Southeastern Conference in community service. And, we want to win trophies and championships, but being a high achiever academically and leading in community service is certainly a good place to be as well. I mentioned the pandemic to you. It was a trying time for all of us. I know that our lives, whatever capacity that we went through, have been turned in a different direction, but let's hope that we're on the back end of it. But we got through it at this university, and I want to give President Caslin kudos for the amount of time and effort that he put in to try to keep this university open and keep our athletic teams participating. While the schedules were disrupted, we continue to have practices. We continue to try to keep our student athletes active. I mean, one of the toughest things that we all have is mental health challenges to some degree, whether it's, stress, anxiety, or whatever the cases may be. And student athletes are really challenged when you disrupt their schedule. We ended up having a football season. If you remember, we played conference only, 10 games. We played some fall sports, but we moved a lot of those sports to the spring after playing a limited schedule. So we were able to do that, and we played this spring. We had every sport participating except for football, and football was doing their spring practicing, if you will. So we were able to get it done and keep our student athletes in somewhat of a normal situation as we went through the spring. And a lot of classes were in person, but a lot of them were still virtual through the pandemic, and we were able to get there. But as I said, as soon as the pandemic hit us, I know where I was, and probably you do too, when the country kind of came to a halt. I was at the men's basketball tournament in Nashville, and we were in a meeting of the ADs prior to the tournament starting, and the commissioner stopped the meeting and said that we've just been declared that it's a state of emergency. We're in a pandemic. Everybody go home. And then that's kind of, when everything stopped. And it just changed everything. But President Caslin formed a strategic group on campus that we launched into action, whether it was our epidemiologists, whether it was all the supplies that were going to be needed with hand sanitizers, all the face coverings, the shielding, whatever the case may be, with the electronics that were going to be needed in the classroom, to how we were going to run athletics and all the things that we were going to do. It was spectacular that we were able to get through it. Our enrollment continued steady. And as we move into the middle of June, we're probably going to have the biggest freshman class that we've ever had on campus, and the brightest freshman class based on academic achievement. And that speaks volumes to his leadership during really a time of crisis, that he put these teams together and we launched into action, and we continued to try to operate effectively and safely as we went through this pandemic. So many good things happened, even though we were in a period of adversity. Speaking a little bit about our teams, I was down in Orlando week before last. We had one of our tennis players, Daniel Rodriguez, competing in a national championship on the single side. 2 years ago, we had a national champion in Paul Jubb, and Daniel didn't win that day, but it just speaks volumes to how successful some of our teams are. Men's and women's tennis were NCAA teams. Both of our golf teams were NCAA teams. Our women's team made it to the national finals. Kaylin Anderson's our women's coach. She was coach of the year. We had the number 1 and 2 ranked players, 1 and 2 ranked players in the country for much of the year. Speaking of men's and women's tennis, we're closing in on a date toward the end of the month that we'll get a certificate of occupancy for our new indoor tennis complex, which is just across the street from the Athletics Village on the other side of Rosewood. So it's if you've been past Rosewood where the car wash has all the lights, it's on that South Marion extension. If you go across Rosewood, it's just on your right down there. So it's a fabulous facility that we're adding to all the great facilities that we've had here. We used to have an indoor tennis center across the street here in the field house. It had 4 courts. Well, 4 is not enough. We need 6. But we decided to take that facility and turn it into a 200-meter indoor track for our men and women's track program, which has been phenomenal. We're one of only 3 schools in the Southeastern Conference that has an indoor banked track. It's one of the fastest tracks in the country. So it's done a lot to enhance our track and field program. If you're familiar with football, you know what we've done with the Football Operations Center, the football indoor building that we had. I mean, part of our responsibility with our student athletes is to provide all the resources you possibly can to make their lives much effective and efficient as they go through daily activities of being a student and an athlete. And providing resources is part of it. And we've been able to do that certainly in the last 10, 12 years. Eric Hyman was the AD before me, and he started the process, and I was able to pick it up with our staff and continue to take care of our facilities where you can compete at a high level, and we've been able to do that. So we're delighted to have Coach Beamer on board now as we start the Beamer era here in the fall, and what Coach Staley has accomplished on the women's side. And most of you know that she will be the Olympic coach in Tokyo. I know we get reports periodically that there's question about whether the Olympics will actually occur or not, but right now the all indications are that we will have the Olympics in Tokyo, and there's no doubt in my mind that under Coach Staley's direction that we'll end up getting a gold medal in women's basketball, and Coach Martin will be back for his 10th season as well. But we have achieved with our sports teams across the board, done a lot of really good things. I probably missed a few sports. Like I said, we've got 21. Our baseball team just competed in the regionals here. We did not win. We got eliminated, but we had a really, really good year getting to the postseason. It's very difficult getting out of the Southeastern Conference into the postseason, but we were able to do that. I know that I've tried to throw a lot of things at you in a short period of time, but I wanted to update you on those things. I'm extremely, extremely proud of what we've been able to accomplish off the field, courts, and the pool, as well as as well as the competition, when you win and lose. One other academic metric that I think needs to be noted is there's a 6-year cohort on graduation rates among athletes that the NCAA keeps. From the time a young man or a young woman enters school, they measure it after 6 years. You say, well, 6 years, certainly you should be able to graduate in 6 years. But a lot of things happen, whether, there's an interruption or whether there's a transfer or changing majors or an injury. So many years ago, the NCAA decided we'll do a 6-year cohort, and we ranked second in the SEC with our graduation rate in that 6-year cohort. And, that's a great stat. We're graduating student athletes, and we had men's basketball, golf, track and field, swimming and diving, women's golf, women's soccer, softball that had perfect graduation rates, meaning every young person who entered that sport ended up graduating. So a lot of things. The last thing I'll share with you that many of you probably have heard about, a little bit about, but not everything, is name, image, and likeness that's going to take effect in the near future. That's when a young man or young woman has an opportunity to profit from their market value of name, image, and likeness. It's somewhat different than we've ever dealt with in the past. But I believe in it. I think it's fair. I don't think we should limit our student athletes when our regular student body or anybody on campus has an opportunity to go out and do something, whether it's work or whether it's do a commercial, whatever the case may be. If it's selling a clothesline or whatever they can be creative with, we live in a great country that provides opportunities. We know there's not a lot of time for our young people to be able to engage in those activities, but now it's now going to be allowed. We have hired an outside group called Altius to help us launch this with our student athletes, just from a guardrail standpoint, to make sure they're protected. Because if they are able to make some money in this space, they'll be like anybody else. They'll have to pay taxes, and they'll have to make sure they don't violate any NCAA rules. But it's going to be coming soon, where name, image, and likeness is in effect. And again, I think it's a good thing. Is it going to be a case where these student athletes are making tons of money? I don't think so. There could be situations. Maybe if we'll use Trevor Lawrence, Asia Wilson. When Asia Wilson played basketball here, did she have a lot of value in the city of Columbia, in this community? Absolutely, she still does. But, like Trevor Lawrence at Clemson, he may have an opportunity to make appearances, sign autographs, whatever the case may be. But it probably won't be prevalent with 500 student athletes. But it will be allowed. I'll just share with you, just so you know, that if you're a football, basketball player, men's or women's, you're on a full scholarship. We have cost of attendance that's been in effect for about 5 years, where you get, in our case, it's different at different universities. You get $500 a month for what we call cost of attendance. It's not pay for play. It's called cost of attendance. It's additional money that gives them an opportunity to do something outside of school or outside of athletics that they might not have a lot of time to do otherwise, but it's a benefit the NCAA provided, and they've been able to do that. Now you can add name, image, and likeness to that. So it's much better now than it was when I played back in the day. But I think it's good that our student athletes have a chance to enter into the real world, if you will, and get this real life experience, because that's the way it's going to be in a few years. As I said earlier, very few student athletes play their sport professionally. You hear about the ones that do, but there's always hundreds from your student body that do not get to do that. So some changes ahead, but I think they're going to be good. Again, I've thrown a lot of stuff at you in a short period of time, and I will be glad to open up for any questions that we may have, and we can talk about anything specific.
Ray, thank you so much. I'm going to swap around some things here.
Okay.
And Paul, I see you on screen. Whoops, not me. There we go.
Yeah. Well, I have a philosophical question. I can have spell a word. I'm trying to use it. We have these students doing great work. And that's today. You've been around for at least 34 years. Can you see the difference in the student today than you saw, say, 25, 30 years ago?
Well, it's a great question, and I don't want to sound cynical whatsoever, and I really don't mean it that way. But I just think that we're in a different place. I mean, back in the day, college athletics were important, but I'm gonna call them non-revenue sports. They're now called Olympic sports, because you got your big four, if you will, say football, men's and women's basketball, and baseball. Maybe a lot of schools refer to that as the big four. But the other sports really didn't have the same opportunities, benefits, really didn't get treated the same, quite honestly. Travel-wise, hotel-wise, food-wise, those kind of things. That has gone away. Everybody's treated the same. Are all scholarships equal? No, they're not. There are some sports that are equivalency sports, and the big ones. Now, baseball is an exception. Baseball is equivalency as well, but those other sports now get treated very well also. So that part has changed. I think our focus is really student athlete centric. And when I took this job, that's one thing I said to my senior staff is you need to understand that where I come from, student athletes are first, coaches are second, and the rest of us are here to support those first two groups. And I believe that's our duty in our roles as administrators. So I do think it's changed. I think that people feel very much a part of things, even though, their sport might not get the same attention. They are treated the same. So I think it's somewhat changed in a good way, but there's also been, as you know, Paul, resources and investments made. Does tennis make money for us? No, but they deserve to have an indoor. And there's really only one sport. Sometimes people will say, well, athletics is just a business now. Well, it's far from a business, because football is a revenue producer, and the other sports are not. Is there revenue produced in baseball? Yes. Is there revenue produced in women's basketball? Yes. Men's basketball? Yes. Does it offset the expenses? No. So football has a model that is a self-supporting entity and generates a lot of money, but it's not driven that way. It's not a business. We're still amateur athletics. It's intercollegiate athletics, and I think that there have been changes, but I think they're for the good. And student athletes are engaged in a different way than maybe many years ago. I think coaches are somewhat more sensitive. Probably many of us who were athletes played for really tough coaches, and I think that standard is a little bit different now than it used to be. It's not coaches in the old days. It's not that they didn't respect you, but it was almost like, you just play and you don't ask questions, you don't challenge authority. And the communication is much better today from coaches to athletes than maybe many years ago. That was a long answer to your question.
Great answer. Thank you.
Great answer. And that brings up kind of a question that when I'm doing some homework for this, and I'm a Carolina grad, but with the progress and the work that your student athletes are doing with their studies, that really is impressive. And I did find the Gamecock Student Athlete Promise. I think you started that back in 2014.
Correct.
And can you tell me how that's involved and some of the parts of it that maybe people don't even know about?
Well, I appreciate that question. I probably should have included that, but I something that, back in 2014, Dr. Pastides and I were discussing, and he really had a hand in that, the Student Athlete Promise is really, once a Gamecock, always a Gamecock. We're not asking questions. If you left, if you departed, whatever the circumstances might have been, if you come back, we pay for your education to finish school. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't matter if you went pro. It doesn't matter if you had personal issues that you had to deal with. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. If you come back and want to finish your degree, we pay for that. We have a budget that we think that's an important initiative that we undertake, and we do everything we possibly can. And we had a lot of young men and young women that maybe went off to play for a while and then realized, well, I'm not going to make a living playing this sport. Now it's time to come back. Well, we're here for them, and they know that. And it is not the case at every university across the country. And it's not necessarily because certain schools might have turned their back on them. They just didn't allocate the dollars necessary to do that. And we have made that a priority. I mean, it's the Student Athlete Promise. It's once a Gamecock, always a Gamecock. And that's it's been something that's been really good for us.
Well, and it's interesting, and it sounds like you're all, we talked about doing work in the community as students. Do you also encourage those former athletes that maybe have or have not graduated to come back and participate and support South Carolina and the Columbia community?
We do. I mean, we try to get all of our student athletes back. We stay in touch with them. We have a Letterman's Association, And then a lot of sports have their individual letterman's group, but we try to get them back as often as possible. I mean, for a lot of our football games, we have a big stadium, and a lot of the times we don't sell it out. And we try to make sure those student athletes, former football players, if they can get back, we have tickets for their whole families to try to, make sure that they're welcome back. But we continue to try to bring young people back. But as we all know, we go in separate directions. You graduate, you move on, you get married, you have a family. It's not always easy to say, well, I'm going back to Columbia for the weekend. But we love it when that does happen. They bring the children back, and we've really done a very aggressive job of retiring jerseys of former players. And one of the reasons, not only from an accomplishment standpoint, was to re-engage and to get them back. And when you get them back, a lot of times their teammates come back with them, to help celebrate the weekend. So it's a really happy, joyous occasion that we're able to do that.
Well, and I'll just ask another question, and maybe Paul has one after that. But in speaking about coming back, a lot of folks did not get to go to Williams-Brice last year and see football games. And I understand there were some changes that when we come back, we might see a few different things.
Well, timing can be everything in life, and we missed a great opportunity because of COVID, which just can't be helped. But we had made about a $23 million renovation to the east side, the west side, and the south side with conditioned space. We've added 8,000 opportunities. We can accommodate 8,000 people in conditioned space that we never could before, with indoor heating and air that we didn't have before. And we've done graphics to mimic what the university stands for. We have the Traditions Club, we have the Horseshoe Club. We have the 2001 Club, and we didn't get a chance to capitalize on that for our fan base and our donors. And it's an opportunity to generate revenue for all of our sports, not just football. And now we'll be ready to go this fall. And as you remember, we were at 25% capacity. We were doing between, 13 to maybe 18, 19,000. And that really caused a deficit, which I will share with you real quickly. For the first time in probably 15 years, we operated we're going to finish this month. We're July 1st to June 30th fiscal year, and we're going to operate in the red for the first time. We've been a self-supporting entity at this university for many, many years. We're one of about 22 schools in the country that are self-supporting. We're going to miss it this year because we weren't able to have that football attendance. Fortunately, the university has the strength to be able to help us. And a lot of universities don't. I know some of my colleagues actually have lines of credit at different banks to try to make up for their losses. And our university is able to help us. Being in the Southeastern Conference, you might have seen maybe 10 days ago, there was a release. We're getting a revenue distribution in advance of year 25 that is over $23 million. So that'll help pay some bills, but we're gonna operate at a deficit for the first time. We've been giving money back to the university for since I've been the AD and back to Eric Hyman's tenure for academic initiatives at the tune of about $5 million a year that we would, as part of our budget, we would send back to campus, not for student athletes, for regular high achieving students or needy students, if you will. Whoever the president or student affairs determined, they allocated that money. And then we also paid for all of our bills on campus, for scholarships. We pay for our scholarships just like you would pay for your son or daughter to go to school. If they're a student athlete, we send that money to campus. If we use a bus from campus to maybe do a run for something, we pay for that. If campus police works our football games, we pay for that. So we've been very proud that we had the wherewithal to manage our budget and also stay in the black at the same time. If not for COVID, we'd still be there. But well, we couldn't really control that one.
And that answer actually, I had several people send me some things before this, and that was one of the questions about, do you break even? Does money, if you don't, does money go back to the student or other students as well? So thank you for sharing all of that with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Paul, do you have another question before I have a couple from our audience?
Sure,
Would you like to?
This is not really a question. It's just some information that that I ran into getting prepared for this, and it's a report from the Dollar Moore School of Business about the university and the impact on the state. And if I might, I just want to read what I was able to find, and just so for your edification. This is about the USC's money. Okay, the University of South Carolina has an annual system-wide impact of $5.5 billion, including goods and services associated with increases in alumni wages and business activity. And then bullet 2 says a total of 60,250 jobs are supported by the system. That's 1 in every 35 in South Carolina. Third bullet says the tax revenue return to the state totaled $219,500 million annually. And then lastly, the USC athletes alone have a $225 million annual impact and also supports 2,787 jobs. That's, to me, I had no clue, no idea. I gotta believe without asking questions, because you don't walk around thinking about this all the time. When I could see the size of the university, the number of people involved, and you start thinking about the 8 campuses, and you start really, if you just think about it, that's a huge impact on this state, and I think it's absolutely worthy of being recognized for all of these accomplishments.
One stat that I'll share with you too, just like for a football Saturday, we typically try to play 7 home football games, and the economic impact for that Saturday is close to $7 million just for one day for
Wow.
the restaurant, hotel, tourism for the region, the city of Columbia, just for one day of football. So the economic impact is tremendous, and we're glad to be a part of that. We do feel like that. Yeah, we're a university, but it is about the city, the county, the region, and all the extension campuses that you referred to. So we've been able to do well, and if we get rid of COVID, we'll get back to the good times.
Very good.
Okay.
And then I have okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well,
Yep.
We talked about the Ray Tanner Foundation. We need to hear some more information about that. If you could share, get us up to speed on that.
Well, thank you, Paul, for mentioning that. I don't usually say much about it because it has my name on it, but I guess now it's been, probably, I don't know how many years. I was still coaching baseball, and my wife said to me one day, we need to start a foundation for the community. And I'm like, I start a foundation. I'm the baseball coach. That's for football people and basketball people, and not. My notoriety is not to the point that we could start a foundation. And she said, well, we participate in the community. We go to a lot of fundraisers and functions, and we try to do some charitable things, but we can make a bigger impact if we can bring more people together. And, I'll be honest, Paul, I was a little bit like, I don't know if this is going to work. But when your wife tells you something's going to work, you end up saying, yes, ma'am, we'll give it a try. So we were able to do that. And you know what? It's been successful. We're able to put back in the community somewhere probably between, maybe $60,000, $80,000 a year to different charities or people in need, whatever the case may be. Now, our mission statement is really about children and their families that we try to keep together, and that's sort of the heartbeat. 2 of our children are adopted, and that sort of was a soft spot for us, but it's not always the case. I can remember years ago, The soup kitchen was having some trouble mechanically. It was the dead of winter, and we were able to get them up and running. And I challenged some other people in the community that we have to get this fixed for people in our city that are cold and hungry and homeless right now. That it's a tough time. And I made a few phone calls, and I challenged some of my friends. This can't wait. Let's go. And we were able to do some things like that. But our foundation it's not huge, obviously, but it's a good thing where we can give back to the community and help out. And that's, again, to my wife's credit that we were able to launch that and continue to do that to this day.
Well, and that's a perfect opportunity for me to thank you for supporting United Way of the Midlands Resilient Richland, which is now Resilient Midlands. And that program, as you know, addresses the childhood trauma, and it equips individuals and organizations with information and skills to help these children and youth really be able to overcome that trauma. Because trauma, can affect us our entire lives. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. We've had a couple questions from the chat. Let me put this on the screen, and I'll read it to you if you'd like. From Zach, do you have a favorite memory from your time as a coach at University of South Carolina?
I'll try to keep this answer short, but I think that it's really a two-part. One is just being able to coach here with the passion and enthusiasm of our fan base for baseball was really, really special. And all the young men that I had a chance to coach, it's just, it almost feels like you shouldn't be paid sometimes when you get a chance to go outside and coach a team. It's just such a joy and a passion to do something that you love, and you get paid for it. So, and one of the favorite memories is a game that we won back in 2002. We beat Miami here at the old Sarge Fry Field. And in 2000, we were really good, didn't make it to the World Series. 2001, we were really good again, didn't make it to the College World Series. 2002, we beat Miami in the ninth inning to get to the College World Series. And to me, that was sort of a breakthrough moment that, when you're trying to, whether it's in your job at work or communication, whatever the case may be, there's always like a breakthrough point. And although my teams were good, we just hadn't been able to, as Bum Phillips used to say, we hadn't been able to kick the door in. And we were able to win that game, and it sort of gave us a breath of fresh air for the future. And then things continued to go well. I think it was the belief system was realized, and it was a lot easier after that. But that, a long time ago, 2002, when we were able to beat Miami, was a special memory because I think it opened the door to great days ahead, were national championships, other visits to College World Series. So it was a really defining moment. I'm sure Coach Staley has similar moments. Her first couple of years here were not great, but she stayed with her blueprint, and then things started to happen. And of course, now where she is nobody wants to play Coach Staley. Nobody wants to play her team. So thanks for the question.
Yeah, that was good. And you mentioned we have some questions that were sent to me earlier, and one from Liz was how, with the pandemic and all the issues you had to deal with, were there things that came out of that gave you some best practices that you might actually use in normal seasons?
I think that there are a lot of best practices because we were forced to be extremely thorough in everything that we did and everything we had to manage. But even more than that, I think it was an opportunity that it was like, okay, slow down, catch your breath. Let's be extremely thoughtful in what we're doing, whether it's a function of administration or if it's a personal relationship, that it was a time to pause and say, what's important now versus, the fast pace that, we get on that hamster wheel and we just start running. And a lot of us do that. We wake up in the morning and here we go. And I think that it certainly it had an effect on me that it's like, okay, back up a minute and let's make sure that we're doing all the things that we need to do. They don't have to be done in 30 seconds. And everything is not a crisis that we deal with. We didn't like COVID, and we didn't like the pandemic, but I think some good did come out of that. And I think relationships, especially here, we were able to keep our staff together. We had pay cuts, we had furloughs, we had all that in place athletically to try to make our numbers better than they were. But we didn't cut jobs, and some people across the country had to cut jobs. I mean, we didn't do that, and we're hoping to get back to some normalcy. So I guess if you pin me down, what really was a benefit out of all this was, let's slow down. Let's slow down a minute and let's do it the right way, whatever the case may be.
All right. Another from one of our viewers, Brad, based on the goals that you set 10 years ago as AD, what grade would you give yourself on achieving these?
Can I get 2 grades?
Sure.
Okay. The first grade, I would say that I would give myself an A on the commitment to student athletes and the opportunities in making them a priority, whether it was facility improvement or their quality of life or how they traveled or how they ate with nutrition stations, and the commitment whether we needed to have a charter aircraft, a commercial aircraft, or whatever needed to be. They were a priority. And we've done that at a very high level. So that part's important. The other grade, I can't give myself an A because I don't think we've won enough in a lot of our sports. We certainly have won at a high level in our Olympic sports, but right now football is not at the level we'd like for it to be at. Although Coach Spurrier did have a good run. Coach Muschamp had 9 wins his second year against Michigan. Coach Staley's off the charts, good. And, Coach Martin, we'd like to be in the NCAA postseason a little more often. As an AD, you do get judged on those things. So I understand that. So I probably can't give myself an A there. I'd have to come off that scale. But, it's a two-parter, really. I mean, sometimes ADs get credit. They get credit for wins. And, to me, it's, I don't want any credit for any wins. I like the fact that our student athletes know that they have an athletics director that's going to try to provide the best opportunity, that they have a position. And that's the word I use often, position. What position are you in? Do you feel good about your opportunity that you have as a student athlete to win? Is your position good? Are you feel good about your resources that you have, whether they're academically or the nutritional side, the mental health side? We have mental health professionals. We covered the gambit here, and that part I'm really proud of.
You really have, and thank you for that. And then we had a question that was sent to me earlier and from Jack, and this is about men's soccer. Any discussion about trying to move to a different men's soccer league as an affiliate member? I'll read the whole thing. Our program has lost visibility it had in its heyday. Any chance of restoring the tournament with nationally known teams that we used to have each Labor Day weekend?
I'll tell you that, we're in Conference USA. That's our affiliate with men's soccer. The Southeastern Conference only has 2 teams that play men's soccer. That's us and Kentucky. And you can't even have a conference championship unless you have a minimum of 4 teams. So it's kind of, I guess, a little bit different that the Southeastern Conference never had men's soccer, but we play in Conference USA, which is really a great soccer conference. We had, I think, 4 teams make the postseason this year out of Conference USA, and Marshall won the national championship out of Conference USA. So it is a high caliber soccer conference. I maybe the non-conference games, we do play Clemson. And, that profile might be a little bit different with our new coach, Tony Annan. But I will tell you that our soccer conference is very, very good.
Very good. Paul?
Well, I'm just very pleased with the answers that we're getting from the questions that we had. I really don't have any additional questions at this time, but I've been very impressed. And shouldn't be surprised by that. With how you have a great handle on your programs, you understand what's happening, and it's pretty clear that that you're being successful because of your leadership. And I want to congratulate you on that.
Well, I appreciate your comment. We have some great people here, in administration. We've got a great coaching staff, and being a former coach, I think some of our coaches like that because they know that I know how it feels, when you feel good and you don't feel good, because I've been there. Yeah. And that is good. But as far as, the operation internally, with our senior associate athletic director, Jeff Talent, that's our, as far as our financial window that we manage really on a daily basis, and all of our support staff here, great trainers. It's just a great staff, our event management team. So many people do a wonderful job that, they deserve the credit. We just got a great staff. You're only as good as the people around you. I heard that when I was real young, and it is so true in athletics.
Well, I want to thank you too, and you certainly have some great people around you. And you mentioned Olympics. I bet you were going to see some University of South Carolina names, not just Don Staley's. You've got some really great athletes there, and the coaches who work with them. So we thank you for that, and really appreciate your time. I'm going to bring Liz back on to see if she wants to help us wrap up here.
Thank you, Claudia.
You've given us a lot of time today, Ray. We appreciate it.
Thank you. It's great to visit.
Yeah, I think that was just a great presentation. I'm sure all of our listeners enjoyed hearing a little bit different stuff than they would just read in the newspaper or hear at a press conference. So thank you for that, Ray.
Thank you. Do you have anything you want to finish up with?
I would just tell you that I'm grateful, to be a part of this community for so many years, and the friendships, and Paul and I have been together on the Urban League and some other opportunities to associate. And, that's part of, living in a great city and region. And, I've never been one to look, to move, to leave, to go to the next thing. I think that if you're happy where you are and you enjoy the people that you're with, that counts for so much. And that's the case here. I know that, when we don't win enough, people get upset, but it's not the end of the world. We want to win them all. But I'm very grateful to be at this wonderful university and have friendships and relationships with so many people in this region. And just hope I get a chance to continue doing that. But certainly grateful to visit today, and I appreciate all the hard work that you do and what United Way stands for as well.
Well, thank you very much. And we know that you've got an appointment right after this, so I thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Well, that was a great presentation. I think everyone really enjoyed it, and I hope all of our listeners did too. Again, I would like to thank everybody for attending and to ask you to consider becoming a member of Always United if you're not one already. We have a couple of things. Oh, go ahead, Claudia.
I was going to say, I want to, thank you, Liz, for this when we had to make that turn because of COVID from our lunches as activities to us coming up with this Tuesday Talk format. We've done quite a variety of programs, and it's been my pleasure to help moderate those. With you and I both coming to the end of our terms, I know we're turning them over to some really good hands. And we do have one more special event coming up, which is it's something that everybody should consider. It's virtual. It's the AARP Ride at 50 Plus program training, and you would learn what United Way and Always United has helped pilot in this community to be able to get people from point A to point B, whether that's going to the doctor, getting groceries, when they don't have the ability to or access to transportation. So hope you'll consider joining that on June 16th at 1 p.m. And it's been great working with you, Liz. So
thank you. You have done a wonderful job, Claudia. Well, we will certainly.
You have too.
Thank you. We'll miss you.
And Adina is right on track.
Yeah. Well, we have a couple of more activities I would like to tell you all about. We're, in addition to the RIDE program, which is virtual, we're continuing the Pen Pal program with this summer camp that's being held by Lexington Richland District 5. It's about a 6-week program. If you want to be a pen pal to a kid that's having some difficulties reading, sign up at volunteer.ua.org. Also, we are partnering with Tocqueville Society on some of their virtual presentations, and the next one is August 24th at noon, and it will discuss well partners. If you're interested in attending that, just RSVP to Maria DeHart at the address you see there on the screen. I also would like to thank, once again, AARP Driver Safety for hosting this event. And I guess I'll turn it over to Adina now to see if she has anything else to say.
Yeah, I would just love to spotlight Always United, which all of our volunteers here are part of Always United, our group for individuals who are late career or retirees and just want to continue their work with United Way and improving the community. You don't have to be part of that age group, and there's no donation required. It's just a great time to join with other people in the community who care about and wanted to make it better. And so if you want to learn more about that, you can email alwaysunited@ua.org, or you can go to alwaysunited.org. So yeah, thank you everybody for attending, and thank you, Liz, for being a chair this year, and I hope to see you at our next event.
I'll be
Bye.
there. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.